What if I told you that one of the most influential lineages in human history didn't come from Rome, Athens, or Jerusalem, but from Africa? Hidden deep within the DNA of millions of people across North Africa, the Middle East, and Southern Europe lies a single Y-chromosome signature, Haplogroup E1b1b, a genetic marker that has quietly shaped the history, culture, and population of the entire Mediterranean basin. This is the story of how a single African lineage spread across 3 continents, building the foundations of civilization itself. A legacy in our blood. So, to understand Haplogroup E1b1b, we need to start where all stories of humanity begin, in Africa. This Y-chromosome lineage emerged roughly 45,000 to 50,000 years ago, probably in the Horn of Africa or northeastern Africa. At that time, early modern humans were already expanding across the world. But Africa, remained the beating heart of genetic diversity. Among those early men was one whose descendants would carry a genetic code that spread further than almost any other African lineage. That man's genetic signature, marked today as E1b1b, would one day be carried by the farmers of Egypt, the traders of Carthage, the shepherds of Greece, and the conquerors of Rome. From Africa to the Mediterranean, around 20,000 years ago, descendants of E1b1b began migrating northward, likely following greener lands as the Ice Age eased its grip. They crossed through the Sinai Peninsula and into the Levant, mixing with ancient Near Eastern groups. By 15,000 years ago, traces of E1b1b appear across the Middle East. Then came a revolutionary change, the rise of agriculture. When the first farmers from the Near East began spreading crops and animals into Europe around 9,000 years ago, E1b1b lineages went with them, not as invaders, but as partners in the birth of civilization. Genetic evidence suggests that men carrying E1b1b played a crucial role in the Neolithic Expansion, the slow, steady spread of agriculture from the Fertile Crescent into Europe and North Africa. As people settled, communities grew, and the first villages appeared, E1b1b became a symbol of early human success, survival through cooperation and innovation. Today, its distribution tells that story clearly. It is widespread in North Africa, especially among Berbers, Egyptians, and Ethiopians. It's found throughout the Balkans, Greece, and southern Italy. And even as far north as France and the British Isles, remnants of ancient Mediterranean mixing remain. E1b1b is not just African, it's Afro-Mediterranean. It's a lineage that actually helped bridge continents. The DNA of empires. The men who carried E1b1b helped shape the world's earliest great civilizations. In ancient Egypt, this haplogroup is found in modern descendants of populations from Upper Egypt and Nubia, reflecting, deep continuity from pharaonic times. In Carthage, the Berber heartland of what is now Tunisia, E1b1b really defined the merchants and sailors who built one of history's very first global trade empires. In Greece and Crete, it mingled with European lineages, symbolizing, the birth of a cultural crossroads. Wherever E1b1b traveled, it carried with it ideas: farming, seafaring, art, mathematics, architecture. It wasn't an empire of conquest, it was instead an empire of connection. The Berber bloodline. Perhaps nowhere is the story of E1b1b more visible than among the Berber peoples of North Africa. For thousands of years, they've lived across the Atlas Mountains and the Sahara, maintaining a distinct language, culture, and identity. Genetically, the majority of Berber men carry E1b1b, making it one of the oldest continuously inherited African paternal lines still thriving today. This isn't a coincidence. The Berbers were once part of the earliest waves of Proto-Mediterranean populations that moved between Africa and Europe, long before recorded history. Their DNA is a living map of prehistoric contact zones, where African and Eurasian worlds met and blended. The Greek connection. Now here's where things get fascinating. When scientists compared modern Y-DNA from Southern Europeans, particularly Greeks, Albanians and Sicilians, they found surprisingly high frequencies of E1b1b. At first, many thought this must have been from recent migrations or ancient slavery, but deeper analysis showed something older. E1b1b was already present in the Aegean thousands of years ago. This means some of the earliest Greek ancestors, possibly pre-Mycenaean, Neolithic farmers, carried African-derived paternal lineages. So when we think of European civilization, we're really seeing a fusion of African and Eurasian DNA, blended over millennia into the Mediterranean identity we know today. The Roman mosaic. By the time of the Roman Empire, E1b1b was everywhere. From Libya to Spain, Sicily to Syria, the empire's soldiers, traders, and settlers mixed constantly. Roman DNA, like Roman culture, was a mosaic, and E1b1b was one of its most common ingredients. When geneticists analyzed remains from ancient Roman cemeteries, they found paternal haplogroups of E1b1b, J2, and R1b, reflecting a blend of African, Near Eastern, and European origins. This paints a striking picture. The Mediterranean world wasn't divided by race or origin, it was connected by shared ancestry. The modern legacy, well, it's pretty fascinating. Today, E1b1b is found in millions of men around the world, not only in Africa, but across southern Europe, the Middle East, and even Latin America, carried through centuries of trade, migration, and empire. In North Africa, it can reach frequencies of up to 70% in Berber and Egyptian groups. In southern Italy, Greece, and the Balkans, it ranges from 10 to 25%. And even in Western Europe, low but measurable traces persist, a genetic echo of the Mediterranean's ancient melting pot. This isn't a sign of invasion, it's a record of connection, proof that the Mediterranean was never a boundary, but a bridge. The science behind the journey. So, how do we know all this? The answer lies in Y-Chromosome Analysis, which traces direct male ancestry from father to son. Haplogroup E1b1b is defined by specific mutations, known as SNPs, that scientists can track like a breadcrumb trail through time. The deeper they look, the clearer the branches become. EM78 is common in North Africa and the Balkans. EM81 is almost exclusive to Berbers, a genetic signature of the Maghreb. And EV13 is widespread in southeastern Europe, linked to Neolithic migrations. Each branch tells a different part of the story, from African deserts to Balkan mountains to Greek islands. But they all share the same ancestral root. The cultural impact. Yeah, what makes E1b1b so fascinating isn't just its age. It's really about what it represents. This lineage connects Africa, Asia, and Europe, at a time when, most people tend to think of them as totally separate worlds. It's the genetic proof of an idea that historians and linguists have long known, that civilization is born at crossroads, not in isolation. From Egyptian hieroglyphs to Greek philosophy, from Berber navigation to Roman engineering, the Mediterranean's genius honestly came from its diversity. And in every ancient port city, from Alexandria to Athens to Carthage, there were men carrying E1b1b in their blood and passing it to future generations. A shared human story. E1b1b challenges our modern idea of identity, because it reminds us that African and European are not opposites, they're family. Human history has always been a story of movement, mixing, and adaptation. Boundaries are recent, bloodlines are ancient. Every cell in our body carries evidence of that. And E1b1b is one of the clearest examples. The legacy lives on. If your paternal DNA test shows E1b1b, your ancestry is part of one of the most influential human journeys ever recorded. A lineage that built the earliest cities, sailed the first ships, and bridged continents before maps even existed. But even if it doesn't, you're still connected to it. Because the story of E1b1b is not about genetics. It's about humanity's shared beginning. It's about how civilizations rise, not from purity, but from connection. So next time you hear the word Mediterranean, don't think of a place. Think of a network. A living web of ancestry that began in Africa and still pulses in millions of people across the globe. Because deep down beneath every border and every language, we are all the children of those first travelers who carried the African DNA that built the Mediterranean.